Okay, so I told you that we have already finished the fourth module. There are a few concepts that still needs to be explained because in those notes, those concepts were not there. Like the concept of polymorphism. The concept of polymorphism was not there in the notes, so we have to even do that because there are some questions that is asked in examination based on polymorphism. So first I will solve the question paper of how much we have completed so far from fourth module, and then this topic of polymorphism we will keep it for later on. So let us start solving the paper. Now I will share my screen and then I'll just step by step go and then explain to you what is there in the question paper. First I will open the question paper of the year Jan 2019. Okay, so I have Jan 2019 here, and if I go to this module number 4, yeah, there it is, module number 4. If I make it a little big, then you can see it. Yeah, the first question that is there from module number 4 is that how class can be instantiated in Python. Write a Python program to express instance as a return value to define a class rectangle with members width, height, corner x, corner y, and member functions to find the center, area, and perimeter of a rectangle. Now these are a few things that we need to write. This is asked for 8 marks. What we have to do in this question is that first of all we have to explain exactly how in Python we create instance of a class. How do we create an object of a class? So you have to write about 1 or 2 sentences about what is a class, and then you have to write about how to instantiate a class. So in simple terms, the answer for this question would be the instantiation or a class can be instantiated by using the following format, and then you have to write this. So I will write it in this. For example, instance, I have a class called as point. If I have a class called as point, and if I want to create an object of this class here, so simply you have to write the name of the class. You write C is equals to, and then you simply write point. That's it. Only these 3 lines of code you have to write to explain to people exactly how to create object of a class, how to instantiate a class. The name of the class is point, and the name of the object is C. So what is the meaning of instantiation? The concept or the process of creating an object of a class is called as instantiation or instantiating a class. Okay, so this is that you have to write for the first part of the question. The question is how can a class be instantiated in Python? So you have to write the object is equals to the name of the class. Write a Python program to express instance as a return value. Now this question is important. It continues. The first part I think is only for 1 mark. The remaining 7 marks is for this program here. The program is quite simple. Anytime any program is given to you, please read the program several times to understand what is the question asked, and then you have to write a program for that. So if you see, write a Python program to express instance as a return value. So you have to write a function. You have to write a function, and the function has to return back an object. The function has to return back an object. That is what is the meaning of write a Python program to express, to show instance is object as return value, as a return value. So we have to write a function which returns back an object. Okay, we have to define a class called as rectangle. The rectangle has following members. The rectangle has width member, height member, and then corner point, x coordinate of the corner and the y coordinate of the corner. So we have corner x and corner y as the corner point, and member functions, and then it should contain 1, 2, 3 functions. It should contain center. The function center should return back. The center function should return back the center of the rectangle, and area should give me the area of that rectangle, and perimeter should be another function which should give me the perimeter of the rectangle. Now this is for 8 marks. I have already written the program here. You can just follow this. You can have a look at this. So what we have done is we have written a class called as rectangle. The class itself does not have any implementation. Remember, the class rectangle does not have any implementation. There are no functions, there are no objects, there are no variables inside the class. Class level declarations are not there. Just like how we can define the initial classes you saw, how did we define? We did not define anything inside the class. Only the object were having its own attributes. Okay, class level attributes are not there, only object level attributes are there. So what we did is we defined 2 classes basically. One called as a point, okay, which represents an x and y coordinate, and we defined a class called as rectangle. Okay, and then we defined 3 functions: center, perimeter, and area. We defined 3 functions: center, perimeter, and area. All these three functions take rectangle as the parameter. Takes rectangle as a parameter. You have to pass rectangle object as a parameter to the function, and the function will calculate something and then give you the result. What will the first function do? What will the center function do? Let us see that. Okay, the center function will take rectangle object as parameter. It will the name itself suggests that the center function will give me the center of the rectangle. It will give me the center of the rectangle. Okay, to which I have to pass rectangle. And what will this rectangle object contain? What details it will contain? It will contain the height of the rectangle. It will contain the width of the rectangle. It will contain the x coordinate of the corner point and the y coordinate of the corner point. So it will contain all these details in the object, and using this I have to find the center of the rectangle. So the center function takes rectangle object as the parameter, and then it finally represents, it calculates the center of the rectangle and then sends me back. Now this is important. What it returns me back? It returns me back an object of a class. It returns me back an object of a class. What is it returning back? It is returning me back a point. It is returning me back a point which is nothing but the center of the rectangle. So this is how we demonstrate that a function can return back an object. The function can return back an object P. What is P? P is an object of the point class. So this solves one of the question asked. They have asked, like, demonstrate how a function can return back an object, and that is how we are demonstrating it through this example here. Look at this function carefully. The name of the function is center. What it takes an object of rectangle as a parameter, and then that rectangles, this function will calculate the center point and return me back an object of point, which will contain the center point of the rectangle. Okay, so let us see how to do this now. Now, before actually understanding these functions, okay, now let us actually first start with this. Okay, I have a class called as rectangle. I create an object of the rectangle class. R, small r, is the object of the rectangle class, and then I initialize this R with its numerous data. I initialize the rectangle R with its numerous data. I feed, I populate, I put data into the members of this object. So R dot height. So I say that this rectangle's height is 10. I say that the rectangle's height is 10, and then I said that the rectangle's width is 30, and then I said that the rectangle's corner point X is 10, and the corner point Y is 20. Okay, so I define an object of rectangle, and then I initialize all the attributes of this object: height, width, X point, and the Y point of the corner to 10 and 20. This is what I initialize. Then I want to find the center point of this rectangle now. I want to find the center point of this rectangle R. So to find the center point of this rectangle R, what I do, I simply call the center function. Where is the center function written? The center function is written here on the top. You can see that. How to call that function? I have to simply say center. And then pass this object here as a parameter, because this center function is accepting, it is taking as input an object of the rectangle class. Okay. Let me make it a little big. So I've made it big. Okay. So what I do, I define R, object of rectangle, initialize height, width, X point, Y point of the corner, and then I want to find the center of this rectangle. So I call the function center, pass this R as the parameter. So now R gets copied into rect, okay, and then here inside this temporary one point I define P. P is equals to point. It's a temporary object of a point class. And then what I do is how to find the center point of a rectangle. The other day we had solved this problem. It was what? Rectangle's X point, corner X point, plus the width of the rectangle divided by 2, and the Y point plus rectangle's height divided by 2. So this is how I get the X coordinate of the center point and Y coordinate of the center point. So center point's X coordinate can be calculated by using this formula, and the center point of the Y can be calculated using this formula. So that is put into P of X and P of Y. That is put into P of X and P of Y. Why? Because P is a point. It's an object of point. It has got two attributes, X and Y. So in P of X, what I do, I put the X coordinate of the center point, and in P of Y, I put the Y coordinate of the center point, and then finally I return back P. I return back P. Okay, I return back P, and whoever is calling this function, P will be returned to him. P will be returned to him. So this is how we demonstrate that functions can return back an object. What am I returning here? Am I returning a string? No. Am I returning an integer? No. What I am returning back is I am returning back an object of a class point. You can see this. What is P? P is an object of point. and then in x of that p I'm putting the x coordinate of the center, and in p of y I'm putting the y coordinate of the center, and then I'm returning back small p, which is an object of the point, which comes back here. So you can see here what I do is first I define a temporary object of point c. C is equals to point, temporary object it is, and then I write c. Look at this carefully. C is equals to center of R. C is equal to center of R. Why do I have to do this? I have to do that because the center function takes R as the argument. And what is R? R is an object of rectangle. So it takes that as the argument. And then what does this center function return me back? It will return me back an object of point. So that's why I created a temporary object C of point, and then whatever the function is returning me back and putting it into C. So whatever the function returns me back comes into C, and then finally I want to display that. So how do I display that? Print center of the rectangle is C dot x and C dot y. C dot x and C dot y. I display the x coordinate of the center and y coordinate of the center, because that object which is returned by the center function comes into the object C, and C dot x holds the x coordinate of the center, and C dot y holds the y coordinate of the center point. Okay, so this is how we demonstrate how functions can return back an object. Next, this is how we find the center. Now, what is a perimeter? A perimeter is sum of all the sides of a rectangle. So to find the perimeter, what I do is I define a temporary integer variable. Okay, p now is a simple integer variable because the perimeter function is going to send you back what? An integer or a floating point number. Okay, so p is equals to perimeter of R. I have defined a function called as perimeter, and to perimeter what I am passing? I am passing R. What is R? R is an object of the rectangle. So let us go to see what is there in the perimeter function. So I have defined a function here called as perimeter, and the perimeter rect is the object that comes, and then how to find the perimeter? It is a sum of all the sides. So rectangles, this rectangle's height into 2, because all the sides has to be added. So rectangle's height into 2 plus rectangle's width into 2 and add them. That's nothing but the perimeter. So I calculate the perimeter of the rectangle by doing this formula. Simple it is. Put it into peri, simple temporary variable peri, and then return back peri. Now remember what is peri? Peri is a simple integer variable, or if let us say the height and width are floating point numbers, then peri is a floating point variable. It is not a object. It's a simple basic integer or a floating point number. In my case, what I'm going to do is I'm initializing height and width to 30 and 10 and 30. They are integers. They are not even float. It is not 10.6 and 30.3. For simplicity, what I've done is height and width I've kept them to integers only. So definitely peri will contain an integer value. And then when I say return peri, it will give me back what? The perimeter function will give me back what? The perimeter of the rectangle, which is passed as argument to it. Okay. So I go here and see, okay, now p is equals to perimeter of R. R is a rectangle. So what comes back from the function is the perimeter. So that I put it into p, and then I print perimeter is equals to p here. I print perimeter is equals to p here. Okay, so that displays me my perimeter. And then finally, I have to find the area of this rectangle. Area of the rectangle is length into breadth, that is width into height. Width into height is nothing but the area of the rectangle. That is how we find the area. So I declare a temporary variable a. A is equals to area of R. What I'm passing to the area of a function? I'm passing what? To the area function, I'm passing R. R is object of the rectangle. So if I go to the area function here, rect is the object of the rectangle. So what I do is I define one more temporary variable inside the function called as a. I write a is equals to rectangle's width into rectangle's height. So rect dot width into rect dot height. Calculate the area, put it into a, and then finally return a. Finally return a. So the area function will return back a. That a gets copied into this a. That the a gets copied into this a. Now remember, this a that I've defined here and this a that is over here are two different variables. This is a local variable and this is the global variable. So whatever the function returns back comes into this a here, and then I have to finally display this a. Print area of rectangle is a. Print area of the rectangle is a, and this is the example for that. Quite simple example. It's not very complicated. It might sound that it is, but once if you see this example, it is all very easy. Okay, so what is the solution? We define two classes, point class and rectangle class. Define three functions, center, perimeter, and area. Define these data members. What are the data members of the rectangle class? Height, width, text, coordinate and y coordinate of the corner of the rectangle, and then finally calculate the center of the rectangle, perimeter of the rectangle, and area of the rectangle. Now let us run this program and check the output. Okay, I have already executed it here. You can see that I wrote Python Jan. That is the name of the program here. The name of the program was jan7a.py. And then when I executed this, it said center of the rectangle is 25.0, 25.0. That is, it gave me the center point of the rectangle. And then the perimeter of the rectangle, it gave me 80. That is, I think, correct, because what was it? It was 10 and 30. 30 plus 30 is 60, and 10 plus 10 is 20. So 60 plus 20 is equals to 80. That is correct. And finally, the area of rectangle is also correct. 13 to 10 is 300. So that is the area of the rectangle. Quite simple. I will execute this program once again. You can see Python jan7a.py, and then it displays me that. For example, if I change the values here, if I make this as say, let us say I make it 20, 5, and I make the width as 70. Okay, and this I make it as 15, and this as 80. Okay, some weird numbers I give. I save that program. File, save, and then I go to this and then execute the program. You can see that center of the rectangle now it changed to 50 and 30.5. 50 and 30.5, and the perimeter is 190, and the area is 1750. Okay, this is good enough, no problem. Okay, so if you write this program, you remember you get full 8 marks. Full 8 marks you should get. Now, don't worry much about making small mistakes here. If there is a logical error also, I have said you people already that don't worry about the logic of the program much. There are marks for the steps. Even if, let us say, by mistake, you don't calculate the center point properly. If you don't remember, if you don't understand how to write the logic for finding the center point. If you don't remember how to find the perimeter of the rectangle also. If you don't know the formula for area also, that is. And if you calculate something here, instead of doing width into height, you have done width plus height. Width plus height. If you have done width plus height divided by 2, something like that, if you do, let us say. Okay, it's still okay. Don't worry much. For that logic wrong, they will cut something like only 1 marks or 1.5 marks or 2 marks. Maximum they'll cut. But the remaining 4 marks, 5 marks, you will definitely get for the steps. If you show them that you have defined class point, if you have defined rectangle point, if you have defined 1, 2, 3 functions, you have defined these data members, there are points for that because they are mentioned here in the question paper. You can see that they want you to write a Python program to express instance as return value rectangle with members. They have said that a class should contain members like width, height, x coordinate, y coordinate of the corner, and member functions should be like center, area, and perimeter. So if you have defined this also, you should get at least 50% of the marks. You should get. Okay. So let us go to the next question. The next question is explain init and str method with an example Python program. Okay. Now this we have already solved in yesterday's class. What is this init and str method? Init is the constructor of a class, and str is if you want to display the string form of or any details. If anybody displays an object directly, for example, if you have a class called as point, if I have p is equals to point, p is an object of point. If suppose somebody says print p, the moment they say print p, so whatever you've written in the function str will be displayed. Whatever you've written from function str will be displayed. That is what is the str method. How to write the str method? We write underscore underscore str underscore underscore bracket. How to write the init function? Underscore underscore init underscore underscore bracket. We write or we define the functions like that. Okay. When will the constructor get executed? The constructor will get executed when you create an object of the class. So I hope I need not give an explanation on that. We have seen that already yesterday. It is there in the notes also. Okay, it is there in the notes also. So if you yeah, in those notes also it was there. So you can see it here that we have explained the init method here, and they have given an example also for that. Similarly, they have also given explanation for the str method also somewhere down here. Okay, somewhere down here they have given the next method inside the class is str. Okay, underscore underscore str. It is a special method used for string representation of a user-defined object and all that. So it is already there. You please go through that and try to understand what is the concept. Okay. So that is also asked for 8 marks. Please remember you have to explain what is an init method and str, and you have to give an example also for that. You have to write one example. Okay. Fine. So let us go to the next question. Question number 8, define polymorphism, demonstrate polymorphism with functions to find histogram to count number of times each letter appears in a word and in a sentence. In a word and in a sentence. Okay, now this is based on polymorphism. I will come back to this question once we finish the concept of polymorphism. But let me give you a small hint about what is this. What is the question here? The question is we have to write a program to count the number of times each character is appearing in a word. Does this sound similar? We have done a similar program, you remember, in module number 3. We have counted number of letters in a word, and we have also counted the number of letters in a sentence. Like for example, if my word is hello, HELLO, then it says H is appearing one time, E is appearing one time, L is appearing 2 times, O is appearing 1 time, like that, we have written a program. So basically the program is to do that only. We have to read a string from the user and we have to count the number of times a particular letter is appearing. How many times A is appearing, how many times B is appearing, and so on. Okay, and this has to be done using dictionary only, no problem. You can use dictionary only because that concept, if you remember, we have done it using dictionary. We have done using dictionary. We have defined a dictionary, and then every time we went through each letter, we incremented it. If it is already there in the dictionary, otherwise we initialize it to 1. Same concept, very small program was there if you remember, same program. But this we have to do it using polymorphism. We have to do this using polymorphism. I will come to the concept of polymorphism later on. We'll come to this concept of polymorphism later on. Let me just solve all the other questions here now. But still give you a little hint about what is polymorphism. Remember, polymorphism is multiple forms. Like yesterday, we did one example of polymorphism. We did operator overloading. What did we do? We performed 2 tasks using the same operator plus. We can even perform addition of 2 simple integers using plus, and then we can also use plus for doing some other task also. Yesterday we saw that. That itself is an example of polymorphism. One thing performing 2 tasks. One operator performing 2 tasks. Okay, so if you have a class in which you have 2 functions with the same name but different parameter list, is also an example of polymorphism. If you have a class in which you have 2 functions, 2 methods with the same name, it is possible. I know you have heard this in Java, you have heard this in C++. The concept of polymorphism is that my class can have multiple functions. I can have more than 1 function with the same name. The name of the function can be add. 2 functions in one class whose names are add only, but different parameter list. So if you demonstrate something like that, it is polymorphism. Why do we have to use polymorphism? All that we can see it later on, but I have just given you a little hint about what is polymorphism. A polymorphism is one in which one thing is performing multiple tasks. So I will come back to that later on. Let us go to the next question. What is a pure function? Write a Python program to find duration of event if start and end time is given by defining class time. Okay, now this is a good example. You can see that what is a pure function? What is a pure function? Write a Python program to find the duration, event, and all that. What is a pure function? I told you that there are 2 different types of functions: pure function and modifier functions. Pure functions are the ones which will not change the argument that is passed to it. Okay, pure functions will never change the argument that is passed to it, whereas a modifier function will change the argument that we know. So you have to write a definition of a pure function here. You have to see that pure functions are the ones who does not change the value of the argument passed to it. Write a Python program to find the duration of event when start time and end time is given. Now this is a very simple program. What they have asked here is that 2 times will be given to you, T1 and T2, start time and end time. Start time is given, it is 3 o'clock. Okay, they have given you a start time. They say that the start time is 3 o'clock, and then they give you end time, and they say that end time is 4 o'clock. Start time is 3 o'clock, exactly 3 hours, 3 minutes, 0 seconds, 0. That is the start time, and end time they will give you is 4 hours, 4 minutes, 0 seconds, 0. Now you have to find what is the duration between these 2 times. I know it is 1 hour. I know in simple things, by simple calculation, I know that how to get this is to subtract the start time from the end time, and what you get is the duration between the 2 times. Okay, we have to find the duration between the two times. So now what they are asking us to do is write a Python program to find duration of events if start and end time is given by defining class time. So we have to define a class called as time, and then we have to find the this duration between the two. I did not write this program, but I think we can write it quickly. Okay. So what I will do is I'll just do the file, save as, and I will save this as July. What is the question number? 8b, July 8b, b.py. Okay, same program. I will change it now. Okay, I will use it. Okay, so I have class called as time. Okay, and then all that, and then what I do is I create look at this, what I'm doing. Yeah, last 10 minutes remaining. I think I will be able to finish this program. I have to enter the hour of time 1, or I can simply do this. H1 is equals to input. This will become an integer. One, please enter minute of time 1, seconds of time. And then I do enter the hour of time 2, time 2, 2. Okay, so read time 1 and time 2. And then I create 2 times t1, t1 is equals to object of time, t1 dot hour, t1 dot hour is equals to h1, t2 dot minute is equals to m1. Instead, you know what I can do is, instead of defining these variables and all that, I can directly write down t1 dot hour, t1 dot minute, t1 dot second. Okay. And then I can define one more t2 object, time, t2 dot hour, t2 dot minute, t2 dot seconds. Instead of doing all this, okay, so I created objects and then I directly started putting values into it. Okay, fine. Now that I have both the times, I need to find the difference between the two. So duration, self comma t. So this is the function which will give me the duration. Okay, it takes two parameters, self, and then it will take that. So how to find the time, the duration, how to find the duration? We simply write this HR is equals to T dot hour minus self dot hour. Okay, so what I've done is I have defined a function inside this tiny class where I have passed self object as one of the parameters, and the second parameter is the end time. This is the start time, and this is the end time. And then finally I did end time minus hour, self dot hour, minutes minus minutes, and seconds dot seconds. And then finally I will display the result here only. Okay, I will display it here only. Let me display the output of the duration here only. Otherwise, I can return this back. I can return this back. I can return hour, minutes, and seconds. Okay, but let me print it here only. Okay, the duration is the duration between the two times is HR, comma MN, comma SC. Okay, so there is a function called as this, and then finally I want to call this function now. So to call the function, I simply do this: T1 dot duration T2. So I invoke the function duration. I invoke the function duration using the T1. So T1 gets copied into self, and T2 gets copied into T. So this is the function that gets executed, and here I will get the difference between the hour, minute, and seconds, the time how much has been passed. Let me quickly save this. 4 minutes remaining. I will save this as July 8B. I go to the command prompt, Python July 8b.py, enter. So what is it saying? It's saying that T2 invalid syntax. It is saying T2.minute. There is some problem here. T2.minute. Yeah, I think there is one more bracket required here. Yeah, there was one more bracket required there. File, save. Yeah, it is asking me to enter the time of the first time. This is the start time. So for start time, we will say 3 o'clock. Minutes, I'll say 0. Seconds, I will say 0. Second time means end time, hours, 4, 0, 0. So now you can say duration is 1 hour. 1 hour, 0 minutes, and 0 seconds. Okay, now let us give some complicated input. Let us give the hour as 3, and the time in minutes, 3 hours, 30 minutes, 3 hours, 30 minutes, and 10 seconds. And 10 seconds. What is the end time? What is the hour? I will say 4 o'clock. It was 4 o'clock. It was 50 seconds. It was 50 seconds. Okay, it is 20 seconds, and seconds of that I'll say it is 30 seconds. Okay, enter. So it says that what was the difference? 1 hour minus 10 and 20. Difference is definitely 1 hour, because that started at 3 o'clock, this ended at 4 o'clock, and then this. Okay, now the program is not that simple. You simply cannot subtract hours from hours, minutes from minutes, and all that. Okay, you have to take care that it should not go in negative. If it goes in negative, then you have to subtract some minutes from here also, from the hours also. So you have to take care of all that. And I think that can be done since there was no time. But the simple explanation I've written here, simple program I've written here, which takes 2 times as input, the start time and the end time, pass it to the function called as duration, and in duration subtract the hour from the hour, minutes from the minutes, and seconds from the seconds. But in this function, you have to write a logic. You have to write a logic to actually find that the answer should not go in negative. If it goes in negative, then the appropriate hour or seconds has to be incremented and decremented. Okay, so that has to be taken care. But so far, I hope you understood exactly how to write the program. Duration function you have to write, define 2 times here, call the duration function by passing this object, and then find the difference between the 2 times. It's quite simple. So let's not worry about the logic here. In the next class, I will give the complete logic for this program. Okay. So the time is up now. Only 1 minute remaining. I will continue again in the next class. And tomorrow's classes, I don't know, because there is a demonstration for a new software. I hope everybody has got the information that you all have to install Microsoft Teams. There is this software called as Microsoft Teams, which is very good. I recommend strongly everybody to install that Microsoft Teams software in your mobile phones. In Android also it is possible to install. In any phone it is possible to install. If you have a laptop also you can install it, and then finally your user ID and password is given to you. Log into Microsoft Teams. Log into Microsoft Teams, and henceforth we will be doing our classes on Microsoft Teams. I have seen that software. It is excellent. It is really, really excellent software. Far more better than Zoom. So we also don't know exactly how to use it. A lot of complications are there in that. A lot of features are there, but a lot of applications are there. Okay. So we will learn that tomorrow. Tomorrow there is a demonstration by this Microsoft people to all the staff members. So tomorrow morning it is there. I don't know what time. So you will be informed properly about the classes. If it is not there, if it is suspended also, you will be informed beforehand. Okay. So we'll stop here now. Have a nice day.